All right, welcome everyone. We are here at the scene shop at Citytech. I thought I'd give you guys a quick tour of our operation. So that's the entrance. Right when you walk in, you have the key essential tool of the shop, the table saw. And the next key essential tool, the radial arm saw. All right. So you can see there's some stick goods right above, some right below, and the rest of them on these beautiful racks, right? So that's important to have everything pretty close, right? So you can grab your material here, bring it to the radial, and then cut it to size. Same thing with the table saw. The table saw is meant to break down sheet goods and stuff like that. So the sheet goods are on these racks, right? So it's not a long distance to grab a sheet and bring it over here, right? And that's kind of how you're going to see most shops, right? Sheet goods are going to be pretty close to the table saw, and lumber and stick goods are going to be pretty close to the radial. If we had, say, more space available to us, all that lumber, right, on that side would be, you know, maybe on this half and that half, but we don't have that luxury, so that works. Right, walking over here, we have some storage underneath the table saw. This is pretty common, right? So when you have the table saw, you have the outfeed table, and the outfeed table pretty much is useless space, right? Because the only purpose this really serves is to catch all the material coming off the saw. So like you can't build on this table, you can't paint on this table. It's just for that tool, right? So with that we have some odd storage, which is good. And then we have some extra sheet goods here, right? So this is some Luan material. I'll go over the different types of materials in a different video, but we have some material here, some over there. You have main workbench 1, and then you have these 3 workbenches, which are squares that come together to make a similar size workbench, right? This bench is a little bit more clever in design because it holds clamps, some extra sheet goods as well. And then on that side it has a roll of brown paper. So if you wanted to paint something on the table without, screwing up the top, there's a roll of brown paper, you'd roll it out, and you could paint on that. These tables, they're meant to be just tables, right? Really light. There's a bunch of crap underneath, right? Any flat surface usually catches garbage. Some of this stuff is actually the stuff that I brought from my shop over to Citytech, right? And then backtrack a little bit. We have another radial arm saw, similar to the one over there, but this one, if you can see, has a couple of blades stacked together. So that's called a dado stack. The purpose of this machine is to cut out material out of a board, not all the way through, but like in the middle of a board, and I could demonstrate that later, but at a certain width, right? So that stack that's in there, I believe is set for 3/4, which is what we most commonly, use it for. But you could shim it out, add an extra blade, and you can get, pretty wide with it. Because you could even see how it doesn't even go all the way down. But if we were to backtrack over to this one, right? You can see this one cuts all the way through. Right? And of course everything's, piped into the dust collection, which is stored in this closet here. right? Dusty, right? And then that is the switch. And that one vacuum has lines running to all of the big machines. So table saw, radial, second radial, and bandsaw. Now in between these two tools for storage is a mortising machine. This is a little bit of a high-end carpentry machine. It's useful only for one thing, which is to create mortises. Right. You can kind of see it looks similar to a drill press, but not quite. That's the kind of tool you'll use in, say, advanced scenery. That's not like a common, tool you'd use on the everyday in the shop. Another tool that's pretty key, you could do without it, is the bandsaw. So the bandsaw, so pretty much if you can kind of visualize without falling behind me, there's a blade, one continuous blade, right? One continuous band of metal that has teeth, and these come in all different sizes in terms of width, right? So you can get one, this looks like a 1/4 inch. You can get one a little bit bigger, 1/2 inch. And they all have different purposes that I'll explain when I use the tool in a different video. So yeah, bandsaw. Another cool toy that just came over from my shop, which is going to live here for the foreseeable future. It's kind of a mess right now, right? But this is the CNC, right? It's a beast of a machine. Almost as expensive as, say, a Mercedes. Right, probably about 60,000 altogether. And there's other accessories you got to buy, like the collets and the bits and all that. But it's a beautiful piece of equipment. The architect department did have one at one point, but they fucked it up, so we won't go there. And then let's see, over here we have a lathe. This is fairly new to us here at Citytech. It was actually a donation. Somebody actually donated this, and Rudy has been working to get it all cleaned up, get it in working order. But it's a pretty cool machine. Then over on this wall, right, this back wall, we have the sort of the metal working area. So this right here is a cold saw, specifically designed to cut metal and aluminum. We don't do too much aluminum here, so we mainly just use it for steel. But you cannot cut like wood and composites and stuff like that on the saw. I believe it's turned off, so I won't demonstrate this one, but you probably get the idea. So similar to how we have the radial arm saw and you have some steel on either side, right? All of the steel that we get usually comes 24 feet, right? So that's why the support for that saw is as big as it is. Now, oddly, all the steel is actually stored in a different room, the crew room, but yeah, and actually I just brought a bunch of steel from my shop to you guys, so hopefully one day you guys will be able to use it. All right, this is where we keep the ladders. Sometimes they'll be on that side, but same difference. All right, we have some A-frames, We have extension ladder, right? And we mostly just have the fiberglass ones. We have this wooden one. We mainly use that for demonstration purposes only. This one is usually kept downstairs in a props closet. So yeah, 2 wooden ones, mostly fiberglass. I don't think we have an aluminum ladder available in this department. Back up a little bit. We have these welding screens. So sometimes we will, if this stuff, most of it's on wheels so we can move it over. And sometimes we weld in this area either for the welding class or for tech production, where we need some, metal work done for like a show or, some sort of custom bracket for, say, lighting or sound. We'd make that here. And then when you weld, it has that UV light that's dangerous to other people in the shop. So you'd use those black screens to sort of shield yourself off from the rest of us. Then back here, this is a sander, combination sander. This one, as you can see, says metal. So this one you just sand metal with. Typically when you have different mediums in the shops, you want to have different tools for different things, right? So, when you're sanding metal, it creates a lot of sparks. All those metal shavings remain hot. So if you were to, sand a bunch of wood and then sand a bunch of metal, you're putting this hot metal, this sparky metal next to a bunch of sawdust. You can figure out the rest. Luckily here at Citytech, we're pretty good about keeping everything separated in that regard, so we've been pretty safe. Right, back there we have some tanks for the welders. We have some sort of shop welders here in the shop, but those aren't the welders we use for teaching. Those are on the 4th floor, which are much bigger machines, much stronger machines, but these are pretty good still. Over here, we have a bunch of flat storage. Now a lot of this is stock from like the scenery classes, some of it's from tech production, some of it's just demonstration flats for this class and the scenery class, where you guys set up a couple flats, take them down. So that's why we have those readily available. Let's see, I missed this one. Over in the corner here is where we keep a stick of truss. This particular piece has been damaged, right? And I'll explain that more in lighting. But once you have a piece of truss that's been damaged, the whole thing is trash, right? It's no longer rated the way it should be rated, and it's practically useless. But instead of throwing it out, we use it for demonstration purposes here in the shop, which works totally fine for us. Let's see. We have these sawhorses, right, on this rolling stand. But those fold open, and you could set up a couple of them, and you could lay out, say your flats, or if you lay out, say 2 of the bigger ones and a sheet of plywood, you could actually make like another work table, which is what the scenery class often does, because you only have so much space for everybody. But at that same time, you don't want to make the entire shop tables, right? You want to have some, standardization of like, these are the tables, right? And then you want to have some modular setups so that you could occupy, more space for more teams. We have this bench grinder, which no one ever uses, but we have it. Here's the tool cage. One of these days, they'll let me back in. but you can see kind of everything, right? So I'll start over here on the left side. You have the tool chest, right? This is where you're going to keep like pliers and wrenches, sockets. There's actually one drawer in there for drill bits, you know, for drilling holes. So you got that. You got all the batteries, chargers. You got hammers hanging up, some squares, some saws. And this is actually one of the few projects that I was in charge of when I was starting here as a CLT, right? We would make all these little holders, right? That one tool right there, which is the chop saw, it's on wheels. That tool has the same function as the radial arm saw, right, which is meant to just cut stick goods and lumber down to size. But this one is, you know, an extra one that we have. It's good for doing angles and trim and all that. The other one that we have, the radial, is set up right now just to do straight cuts. Now that particular machine, you could, you know, rearrange it to do a multitude of things. It has a lot of adjustment, but it's a pain in the ass, right? So it's set up just to do straight cuts, which is most of what we do. And then we have that other one to do, you know, angled pieces or trim, stuff like that, right? And you can see all these bins full of hardware. So you got screws, you got bolts, you know, door handles, hinges, concrete anchors, all, you know, all different sorts of stuff. And it looks like they're using the back of it for storage, which is perfectly fine because no one's here. There's a little shitty sound system because you got to have music in the shop. You can kind of see those red tools right over there. I'll show you close-ups of that when we do the pipe lecture. Right, some miscellaneous odds and ends, and then another blue wall full of wrenches, some welding equipment, some clamps, and then the sanders and grinders are also on that wall. You can kind of see one, the rest of them are kind of tucked away. And you have these main cabinets. This is where we have all drills, there's all the glue, some more extra supplies up here, shrink wrap, glue, all different types, circ saw, right? And then I think some drills over there, some sanders up in that corner, and then the routers. So really, I would say in the shop, drills, you know, jigsaw, circ saw, routers are like your key sort of smaller hand tools. Right, so you have like the bigger equipment, like the table saw, the radial, and the bandsaw, and then you have like the key essential, like smaller stuff, drills, jigsaw, circ saw, router. Down here is where we keep all the, this cabinet is where we keep all the nail guns. So like the staple guns, framing nailers, brad nailers, all that. The next one, I believe, is where we keep the planer, right?